She just gave birth to the baby everyone had been waiting for, and within minutes she was screaming for the whole room to get out. If you thought today's episode of Inimba was going to be a sweet, quiet celebration of new life, you are about to be very, very wrong, because what happened in that hospital room today has left this entire family cracked right down the middle, and by the end of this video you are going to understand exactly why Zethu's meltdown was not what it looked like on the surface. Let's set the scene properly. Zethu had just been rushed in for an emergency delivery, and for a while it felt like the whole neighborhood was holding its breath waiting for news. The moment word got out that the baby had arrived safely, everyone piled into that hospital room the way families do, all smiles, all phone cameras out, all ready to pass the newborn from arm to arm like a trophy. But Zethu was not smiling. Zethu looked at that crowd of well-wishers pressing in around her bed and something in her simply broke. She asked, then she demanded, that everyone leave the room. Not some of them. Everyone. Including Tamika, the one person who assumed she had automatic access to that baby no matter what. This is where the episode really starts to bite, because Tamika does not take rejection well, and she definitely does not take being told to leave a room quietly. She stormed out in front of everyone, loudly asking what kind of new mother kicks her own family out of a hospital room minutes after giving birth. And then, almost as if to rub salt into it, we find out that Zethu had already chosen a name for the baby without consulting Tamika at all. The baby's name is Athikozile, and when Tamika hears this second-hand, from someone other than Zethu herself, you can see her whole face change. This is not just about a name. This is about a woman who has spent months, maybe years, positioning herself as the second mother in this child's life, suddenly realizing she has been shut out of the most basic decision a parent makes. Now, here is where the show does something I think is genuinely important, and it is the reason this episode deserves more credit than just being dramatic television. The doctor is brought in to speak to the family, and she does not dance around what is happening. She sits them down and explains, plainly, that what Zethu is going through has a name. It is not attitude, it is not rudeness, it is not her suddenly deciding she hates her family. It is postpartum depression, and the doctor describes it exactly the way it needs to be described on a mainstream platform like this, a heaviness that can settle over a mother after birth, a sadness that does not always make logical sense from the outside, a struggle to feel connected to the very baby she has just delivered. The doctor is careful to say that this is common, that many women go through some version of it, and that with the right support most mothers come through the other side of it. But she is also honest that it can be serious, and that the people around a new mother matter enormously in how that recovery goes. That is the tragedy sitting underneath this whole episode. Zethu does not have the kind of support the doctor is describing. What she has is Tamika, a sister who does not listen, who does not ask, who has already decided she knows better than everyone else in the room. One of the family members says something in this episode that really stuck with me. If you want to support someone going through postpartum depression, your job is to listen to them and be there on their terms, not to steamroll in with your own idea of what they need. Tamika has never operated that way in her life, and she is not about to start now, baby or no baby. And it gets worse before it gets better, because word starts spreading that Tamika has been talking about Zethu behind her back, telling Thandika that she has noticed Zethu acting strangely, that she looks unstable, that maybe the baby is not safe with her. Then it goes from whispered concern to something far more chilling. Tamika starts hinting that she believes she should be the one to take the baby away from Zethu. Sit with that for a second. A woman who has just been diagnosed, in the same episode, with a recognized and treatable condition, is now facing the possibility that her own sister wants to use that diagnosis as a weapon to take her child. When this reaches the rest of the family, the reaction is exactly what you would expect: disbelief, anger, people saying out loud that this is a step too far, that this is next-level interference dressed up as concern. Not everyone in Zethu's corner is toxic, though, and the episode does give us a bit of relief in the form of Iko, who comes to check on Zethu with none of Tamika's agenda attached. It is a small moment, but it matters, because it shows the audience what real support is supposed to look like next to what Tamika is offering. Iko does not show up with opinions about the baby's name or demands to hold the child. Iko shows up to see how Zethu is actually doing. Several people in the family have started to say, quietly at first and then not so quietly, that if there is a war brewing between Tamika and Zethu, they know exactly which side they are standing on. There is also a genuinely uncomfortable subplot bubbling under all of this involving Zolani, the new father, who is being treated with suspicion by some family members over whether the baby is actually his. It is an ugly thing to throw at a man in the same breath as his partner is fighting through a mental health crisis, and it adds another layer of pressure onto an already fragile household. Between Tamika's campaign against Zethu and the whispers around Zolani, this family is not exactly rallying around a new mother the way you would hope. Instead, everyone seems to be fighting their own private battle, and Zethu, the one person who actually needs the room to breathe, is caught in the middle of all of it. Now let's talk about the other storyline running through today's episode, because Inimba never gives us just one crisis at a time, and this one is a slow-burning disaster that is about to explode. Wandel has been sitting on a truth bomb that nobody in the Zondo family has been ready for, and this week it finally starts catching up with him. We learn that Mr. Zondo has been told, with actual proof this time, that Wandel was at a rival company's offices, and that there is documentation showing exactly what he has been doing there. For weeks the family has suspected something was off with Wandel's loyalty, but suspicion is very different from proof, and now Mr. Zondo has proof. Here is the part that should genuinely worry every fan of this show. Wandel does not yet know that his father has found out. He is still operating as if his secret is safe, still under the influence of Lazarus, who has clearly been working him for a while now. Lazarus has convinced Wandel to sign over the rest of his shares in exchange for a promised position in the new venture, and anyone watching this unfold from the outside can see exactly where it is going. Lazarus has no intention of honoring that promise. He is playing a long game, using Wandel's anger and his desire to prove himself outside of his father's shadow, and Wandel, blinded by that anger, keeps signing. Multiple people around him have tried to warn him that this arrangement smells wrong, that a man like Lazarus does not hand out positions out of loyalty, but Wandel is not in a place to hear it right now. What makes this so painful to watch is that once Wandel finds out his father already knows the truth, and once he inevitably realizes that Lazarus has been using him this entire time, he is going to lose absolutely everything in one blow: his father's trust, his shares, and the position he thought he was securing for himself. There is a real possibility that Mr. Zondo, feeling betrayed by his own son working with a rival, reaches a breaking point where he is no longer willing to keep Wandel under his roof. If that happens, and there is already talk in this episode suggesting it might, a lot of the blame is going to land on someone else in the family who gets accused of pushing things to that point, even though most viewers can see clearly that Wandel's own choices are what got him here. Caught in the crossfire of the Lazarus situation is Somika, who really does not deserve the position she has been put in. She is stuck choosing between protecting her own career and standing by the man she is involved with, and Inimba does not pretend that is an easy choice. The show frames it honestly: loyalty to a partner and self-preservation are not always compatible, and Somika is being forced to decide which one she can live with. Watching her try to hold her ground while everything around Wandel collapses is one of the more quietly devastating threads in this episode, because unlike Wandel, she did not create this mess, she just happens to be standing next to it when it goes off. Meanwhile, back at the hospital, there is a smaller but no less telling moment involving Thokozil's sister, who shows up seemingly just to make things about herself, stirring old childhood history into a room that already has enough tension in it. It becomes clear that there is old rivalry there too, a sense that Tamika has always wanted to be seen as the more important sister figure, and now that Zethu has a baby of her own, that old dynamic is resurfacing in the worst possible way. Several characters comment on how Tamika seems to want to raise this baby as though it were hers, constantly having to be reminded, sometimes gently and sometimes not, that this is not her baby, it is Zethu's. There is also a brief but telling scene involving Limus, who tries to pressure Zethu and Zolani about the baby in a moment when the last thing either of them needs is more pressure. The two of them stand firm and ask Limus to just let things be for now, and honestly, watching them hold that boundary together is one of the few genuinely hopeful beats in this entire episode. It suggests that whatever chaos is happening around them, Zethu and Zolani might actually be able to lean on each other if the rest of the family would just get out of the way. By the end of the episode, Mr. Zondo pulls Somika aside and tells her plainly that she is his number one support through everything that is coming, and that she should be aware that she may end up a suspect in people's eyes simply because of her closeness to Lwandle, even though she has done nothing wrong. It is a heavy note to end on, a father essentially warning the people around him that things are about to get worse before they get better, both for his son and for the family business he has spent his life building. So where does that leave us heading into the next episode? Zethu is dealing with a real, recognized mental health condition in a home that does not fully know how to support her, with a sister who seems more interested in taking over than helping. Tamika's talk of taking the baby away is not going to disappear quietly, and if she pushes that idea any further, this could turn into one of the ugliest family conflicts Inimba has given us in a long time. On the other side of town, Lwandle is sitting on a ticking time bomb, still unaware that his father already has the proof he needs, still trusting a man in Lazarus who has shown every sign of using him and discarding him the moment it is convenient. When those two revelations finally collide, and it feels like they have to soon, the fallout is going to touch every single person we have talked about today, from Zolani and Somika right through to Mr. Zondo himself. What did you think of today's episode? Are you Team Zethu needing space to heal, or do you think Tamika actually has a point buried somewhere under all that interference? And more importantly, how long do you think Lwandle has left before the truth catches up with him? Drop your predictions in the comments, hit that like button if you want more Inimba recaps like this one, and subscribe so you do not miss the breakdown of what happens next. See you in the next video.